Hey everybody, I just decided I'm just going to go read all of chapter 2, and then I'm just going to go through Howard Zinn's chapters 1, 3, 4, 5, and so on until we're done, because there's not that much in chapter 2, and I honestly want to get my thoughts out on this book, so here we go.
The Virginians needed labor to grow corn for subsistence and tobacco for export. They had just figured out how to grow tobacco, and in 1617 they sent off the first cargo to England. Finding that, like all pleasurable drugs tainted with moral disapproval, it brought a high price, the planters, despite their high religious talk, were not going to ask questions about something so profitable. They couldn't force Indians to work for them, as Columbus had done. They were outnumbered, and while with superior firearms they could massacre Indians, they would face massacre in turn. Remember, east was the colonies, and everything west was populated with Indians at this point. So just keep that in mind going forward. They could not capture them and keep them enslaved. The Indians were tough, resourceful, defiant, and at home in these woods, by the way, as the transplanted Englishmen were not. White servants had not been brought over in sufficient quantity. Besides, they did not come out of slavery and did not have to do more than contract their labor for a few years to get their passage and start and a start in a new world. As for the free white settlers, many of them were skilled craftsmen, or even men of leisure back in England, who were so little inclined to work the land that John Smith, in those early years, had to declare a kind of martial law, organize them into work gangs, and force them into fields for survival. There may have been a kind of frustrated rage at their own ineptitude, at the Indians' superiority, at taking care of themselves, that made the Virginians especially ready to become the masters of slaves. Edmund Morgan imagines their mood as he writes in his book, American Slavery, American Freedom. If you were a colonist, you knew that your technology was superior to the Indians. You knew that you were civilized, quote unquote, and they were savages, quote unquote. But your superior technology had proved insufficient to extract anything, because they didn't know how to grow food in the New World. The climate and the soil of Virginia was very rocky, etc. The Indians, keeping to themselves, laughed at your superior methods and lived from the land more abundantly and with less labor than you did. And when your own people started deserting in order to live with them, because that happened, by the way, it was too much. So you killed the Indians, tortured them, burned their villages, burned their cornfields. It proved your superiority in spite of your failures. And you gave similar treatment to any of your own people who succumbed to their savage ways of life. But you still did not grow much corn. Black slaves were the answer. And it was natural to consider imported blacks as slaves, even if the institution of slavery would not be regularized and legalized for several decades, because by 1619, a million blacks had already been brought from Africa to South America and the Caribbean to the Portuguese and Spanish colonies to work as slaves.